Hey all you Switch fans, welcome back to another great eShop deals video. This week is absolutely filled to the brim with great deals, so there's a lot to check out. Let's jump right into these deals. All right, first of all, there are a lot of publisher-wide sales going on right now, so I'm going to try to power through these as quickly as possible. If I go through all the individual games, it's going to really cause this video to blow up, so let's power through these publisher-wide sales as quickly as possible. First of all, we do have Activision Blizzard. They are doing a publisher-wide sale. This includes all the Crash games, mostly of them for 50% off or more. Crash Bandicoot 4 is 33% off. Tony Hawk, 45% off. Spyro Ignited, the trilogy, also 50% off. On the Blizzard side of things, they've got all the Diablo games on sale. In particular, they have Diablo 3, the Eternal Collection, which is amazing. That's 50% off. Overwatch is also 50% off. So the Activision Blizzard sale definitely has some great choices. Also doing a company-wide sale is Capcom. This is very similar to the last time they did a company-wide sale. Most of the deals are matching their previous lows, so there's some really good choices in here. As always, I recommend the Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection, a big collection of Street Fighter games, only $11.99. Great deal on that one. I'm always a big fan of the Capcom Beat 'em Up bundle. That's only $10 right now. That is an amazing collection of some really underrated beat 'em up Capcom games. And of course, you have lots of other titles like Okami, the Monster Hunter games, the Resident Evil games, the Ace Attorney games, some of the Mega Man games. Just lots of great sales all around, so don't miss that Capcom sale. I did also notice that Aspyr Games, or Asper Games, I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce that publisher's name, but I assume because of May the 4th coming up, they have a big sale on all of those Star Wars remasters that they've done. That includes Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, Star Wars Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast, Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, Star Wars Republic Commando, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. So a bunch of great Star Wars games. Their newest one, the Star Wars Force Unleashed, which they've just released a week or two ago, that is not on sale yet. So, but all the other ones are on sale, and I think they've done pretty well for all of those re-releases. They've done a pretty good job on them, and they all run really well on the Switch, and they're a lot of fun. Okay, we also have another publisher sale for Square Enix. Again, this is pretty much every game they have on sale. The Final Fantasy games, the Mana games, there's just lots of choices in there. I did want to point out that ActRaiser Renaissance, which is the remake of the ActRaiser game, is getting its second sale of all time, and it is at its lowest price ever for 30% off for $20.99. So if you're a big fan of the old ActRaiser, you should definitely check that one out. Also, EA is doing a nice publisher sale. They don't have published as many games on the Switch, but quite a few good deals. Both of the Burnout games are more than 50% off. Lost and Random, 50% off. Unravel 2, 75% off. That's probably one of the absolute best co-op experiences you can have on the Switch. Also, Plants vs. Zombies, The Battle for Neighborville, FIFA. Lots of good choices there. We also got Sega doing a nice publisher sale. This one does not include any of the Sega Ages games, those retro throwback re-releases. So if you're going looking for those, you won't find any of those. However, Valkyria Chronicles 4 and the first Valkyria Chronicles are both at their lowest price ever. $11.99 for the fourth one and $7.99 for the first one. And those games are really underrated gems in my opinion. They are a mashup between a turn-based strategy game and a third-person shooter. So I like turn-based strategy games, but that's not my favorite genre. But whenever there's a nice little mashup that kind of remixes a little bit, I really enjoy that, and I really enjoy all of the Valkyria Chronicles games. We also have 2K games doing a big publisher sale. Lots of great choices there. You got the BioShock collection, you got the Borderlands collection, you got the XCOM 2 collection, which is an insane deal. That thing is 80% off for only $10. That is just an amazing deal. You got Civilization, lots of great choices there. And lastly, among the big name publishers, we have WB Games is doing another sale that includes pretty much every Lego game. Those are all really deep discounted, sometimes almost 80% off or more. And they also publish Mortal Kombat 11 and its subsequent DLC, which that's all on sale too. So make sure you check out those games. Oh my goodness, almost out of breath from those publisher sales, but now we're moving on to the individual recommendations, which is really where I get excited to talk about games. All right, we're going to start out with a trio of action roguelikes. First of all is Rising Hell. Rising Hell is a roguelike where you are quite simply making your way out of hell. It's a vertical platformer roguelike. Again, you're jumping your way up higher and higher. It's got some really crunchy combat, some really intense heavy metal music. So if you're into that sort of vibe, you're really going to enjoy this one. One word of caution, this is a very short game, so I think that the price now is a good way to jump in. And when I say short, I mean like you could probably finish it in one afternoon kind of short. But this is only the second time the game has gone on sale. It is 50% off for $4.99, and there is a demo available if you want to try it out on your own. All right, so actually the second game is also a game about making your way out of hell, more specifically Hades, of course, the Greek mythological hell. I don't know what I can say about Hades. It hasn't already been said. Quite possibly, in many people's opinions, the greatest action roguelike ever made. The game is fully voice acted, definitely has a very, very strong emphasis on story, unlike other roguelikes. So death never feels nearly as punishing because every time you die, there's really cool cutscenes and dialogue to be had with many of the Olympian gods. Combat is fluid and amazing, multiple weapon types to master, all kinds of skill trees. It's exactly what you would expect from a roguelike, just has all those perfect drip feeds of constant upgrades. And Hades has a 93 on Metacritic. It is pretty much universally acclaimed. And Hades is currently matching its previous low for 35% off for $16.24. This is a big, meaty, long game. It is absolutely worth that price. All right, and the third roguelike we have is Dead Cells. Dead Cells is a combination of a roguelike and a Metroidvania. As far as it goes for combat in a 2D platformer style roguelike, this one is definitely by far the best in my opinion. You're not going to get the deep story you got out of Hades, but the combat is just super crunchy. You feel really powerful. There's a ton of great weapon variety. Again, many amazing unlocks. This game definitely nails that feeling of just wanting to go for one more run through to see how much more farther you can get. And it is currently 40% off for $14.99. Again, this is another big, long, meaty roguelike, tons of content, a great deal for that price. If you're trying to decide between this or Hades, I would say if story matters more, definitely go for Hades. If combat matters more to you, I think that Dead Cells just barely edges out Hades. But either one has great combat, so if you really just can't decide, I'd probably go with Hades. All right, my next recommendation is Monkey Barrels. Monkey Barrels is a really fun throwback style arcade twin stick shooter. You play as a group of monkeys who are working to save your friends from evil robotic appliances. It's pretty standard. There's just a stage-based selection, and there are tons and tons of variety of weapons. The real reason I'm recommending this game, though, is it has a very, very strong Nintendo feel to it, and the reason for that is this comes from Good Feel Games. Good Feel Games are the developers of Yoshi's Crafted World. This is their first venture into self-publishing their own small indie title. But I'm quite convinced if you played this under the impression it was published by Nintendo, you would absolutely believe it. It just really has that lighthearted, silly Nintendo feel to it. And it is currently matching its previous low for 50% off for $7.49. All right, my next recommendation is Speed Limit. Speed Limit is definitely an homage to all the great retro-style games. At its heart, this is a retro run and gun. The game throws you in immediately into the action. There's really no story given. But right away, you're in a run and gun level. But the real gimmick to this game is it is constantly changing retro style genres. So while it starts as a run and gun, just a few minutes in, you're thrown into a car chase style retro game. And then later on, you're thrown into a flight game or a boat game. At some point, you're thrown into a motorcycle game where it's that sort of a pseudo 3D old retro style. This is absolutely a game that doesn't let you catch your breath. Thankfully, it's full of all kinds of small little checkpoints, so if you're going to die a lot, but it will be forgiving. But if you love adrenaline-focused, old-school retro gaming, you are absolutely going to love Speed Limit. And it is currently 50% off for $4.99. All right, my next recommendation is Oddworld Stranger's Wrath HD. This one is a game very close to my heart. This is actually the game that made me buy an original Xbox. This is a really unique genre mashup between a first-person shooter and a third-person platformer. You play as a bounty hunter in this game with this really cool crossbow, but rather than normal ammunition, you use what's called live ammunition. These are quite literally living creatures that you load into your crossbow, and these different types of living creatures have different types of effects when shooting them. And so these unique types of ammo really open up a great large amount of opportunities and different ways to approach enemies. There's all kinds of ways to sort of set traps or lure them into different areas with these weapons. I'm not kidding when I say this is all-time one of my favorite first-person shooter campaigns. This game is just so unique. I just really can't think of any other game to compare it to. But if you're looking for a lighthearted, fun, top-notch first-person shooter with some really great voice acting and some high production values, I really think you're going to enjoy Stranger's Wrath. And Stranger's Wrath is currently 50% off for $14.99. All right, in my last What's New in the eShop video, I talked about the new game Transit Ruby. That came from the developer of Kamiko, and subsequently, Kamiko is on sale this week. This is one of the first breakout budget titles on the Nintendo Switch. Came all the way out back in 2017. It was only $5 then. Right now it's on sale for $2.50. This is just a really simple Legend of Zelda kind of style combat, top-down action game. You're just making your way through these arenas, killing off enemies, collecting keys to make your way to boss fights. It's real simple, straightforward. Thankfully, the game does include 3 different characters to play as, and they each play very different from each other. I say thankfully because the game is extremely short, and if you didn't have at least those 3 players, there wouldn't be hardly any replay value. But yeah, this is another game you could probably finish in one afternoon, so go in with the proper expectation. But again, it's only $2.50, and I think you're definitely going to feel like you got value out of that price. All right, my next recommendation is Pumpkin Jack. If you are a big fan of the old 90s style platformers like Medieval, you are absolutely going to love Pumpkin Jack. You play as Pumpkin Jack, you are literally working for the devil himself, and you are trying to vanquish all the good in the world. Don't go in expecting anything new or unique. Like I said, this is very much a throwback to those 90s style platformers. But again, if you like those, you're going to really enjoy this one. I actually played this on my channel really early on when I started the channel, so if you really want to, you can check out that. But Pumpkin Jack is matching its previous low price for 55% off for $13.49. All right, my next recommendation is Slime Son. Slime Son is a game where you play as a slime who's been swallowed by a giant worm. You're going to be making your way through its stomach. There's even little towns inside this giant worm. There's characters to meet. This is basically a Super Meat Boy style platformer, just single screen, challenge style levels, really tough as nails platforming. The game is very challenging, very rewarding feeling, and it has a really unique art style. And this was another really early breakout hit all the way back in 2017 during the first launch year of the Switch. And it is currently 66% off for $4.07. All right, my next recommendation is actually a duo of games, Hidden Through Time and Hidden Folks. These are basically games that just take the Where's Waldo style of gameplay. So basically you just have these giant maps full of all kinds of crazy little scenes with people doing all kinds of crazy things. So there really isn't a lot to describe here. It really is just like Where's Waldo. You're looking out over these scenes. They're all nicely animated, but of course everything's really tiny and you kind of zoom in, you're looking over trying to find things that are on your list to find. All kinds of fun secrets to find in these games though. They're pretty humorous. And they really make for a nice sort of co-op experience that doesn't even require the other person to obviously have a controller, because you're both just kind of staring at the screen saying, oh, there's that thing and there's that thing. These games aren't going to be for everyone, but for someone like me, I grew up absolutely obsessed with my nose and a Where's Waldo book quite frequently, so I really enjoyed these. And my kids enjoyed looking at them with me too. Hidden Through Time is matching its previous low for 50% off for $3.99, and Hidden Folks is currently 50% off for $5.99. All right, my next recommendation is Masters of Anima. This is a game that is from my pile of shame. And by pile of shame, I mean that this game has been sitting in my backlog of unplayed games for probably well over a year. But I really want to get around to it. This game is essentially a mix of Pikmin combined with Diablo-style gameplay. So you can play as this character, and essentially you can raise these magical guardians out of the elements. And you can collect up to 100 of them. They're used in Pikmin-style level-solving problems and also used for combat. The plot is simple. You're just trying to rescue your fiancé from this evil character. Again, I cannot speak from experience, but I really like the sounds of the genre mashup, and the game has really solid reviews. This game was originally $20, and then it had a permanent price drop down to $10. And right now, it's currently matching its previous low for 65% off for $2.44. All right, my next recommendation is Tetris Effect Connected. I'm not going to explain to you what Tetris is. You know what Tetris is, but this just takes Tetris and combines it with this really intense Zen-like experience where each level has a really unique theme that changes the way the blocks look, the way the music is. This is just one of those games that you can really zone out to, and it's absolutely beautiful, and it's a total blast. This game is universally acclaimed. It has a 94 on Metacritic. It absolutely deserves it. I think personally this might be my favorite Tetris version ever. I will say one thing though, if you have a way to play this in VR, please do that instead. That is the absolute best way to play it. But if you don't have access to that, 2D's fine. And in particular, this does look really good on the Switch OLED because there's a lot of black backgrounds, and so the visuals really just pop right off the screen. All right, my next recommendation is Thumper. And I have to say, just like the last one, if you can play this in VR, that's probably the way to go. But I actually played it for the first time in 2D on a normal screen, and I really had a great time with it. Thumper is essentially a horror rhythm game. So you play as this sort of like silver beetle style creature. You're making your way super fast down these different tracks. And there's just this constant sort of disturbing thumping music and just really disturbing horror style visuals. So again, this is a rhythm game, so you are making your way through the levels, pressing buttons to correspond with the beats. And each of the levels does have a sort of kind of boss at the end, and you are going to have to, again, play with the rhythm style gameplay and try to defeat these bosses. I really think this game can make you feel really uneasy while playing it, but I think that's kind of the point, and a lot of people enjoy that experience. And Thumper is currently 75% off for $4.99, a great deal at that price. But again, though, if you have access to VR, that's probably the way to go for this one. All right, my next recommendation is the Flame in the Flood Complete Edition. This is a survival game where you play as a little girl and her dog. You are making your way down a river in a sort of a post-apocalyptic kind of looking world. But essentially, there's all this flooding, and you are making your way down the river, and you stop at different ports to maybe meet new characters and resupply your ship, or go into other areas where you might have to combat against wolves or bears or other kinds of creatures, and again, gathering supplies. Has a pretty typical gameplay loop for these survival style games, but this really is a recommendation really based more on just the overall aesthetics and feeling that this game has. Has a really amazing visual style, but what really is the home run for this game is the soundtrack. This is one of the best soundtracks of maybe of any Switch game. Do be forewarned though that the Flame in the Flood, it has permadeath, and it is quite difficult. It's pretty hard, pretty punishing, not for casual players. And it is currently matching its previous low price for 80% off for $2.99. All right, my next recommendation is Monster Boy in the Cursed Kingdom. You could definitely argue that this is one of the best Metroidvanias on all of Switch. But you play as Monster Boy, and throughout the game, he is constantly gaining new abilities to shapeshift into other types of creatures. And of course, in typical Metroidvania fashion, these new creature shapes will allow him to gain access to new areas and of course have new style of combat. The game has an absolutely drop-dead gorgeous hand-drawn art style, a great soundtrack. It's just really, really well produced. Despite how well produced the game is, though, I think its normal asking price is a bit on the high side. I think it's normally $40, which I think is pretty darn high for indie game. But thankfully right now, it does have a very good sale price for 65% off for $13.99. All right, so we've made it to my top 3 recommendations for this week's sale. I'm going to cheat on number 3. I'm going to combine 2 games, and that is Guns, Gore, and Cannoli 1 and the sequel, the second one. The Guns, Gore, and Cannoli games are run-and-gun shooter games that you play as a real typical, sort of stereotyped Italian-style mobster. But these games are just absolutely balls-to-the-wall, crazy run-and-gun shooting games. The first game deals more with like a zombie invasion on the mobster's territory, whereas the second game actually has you fighting against Nazis alongside the Allied forces. So the plots are fairly different, but they are both very crazy, zany run-and-gun shooting games. I will say that the second game has a much more evolved sense of gameplay. The first game, the shooting is all just parallel, so there's no shooting up or down or diagonal or anything like that. You can only shoot straight ahead of you or behind you. Whereas the second game gives you a full twin-stick style shooting motion, so you can point and shoot in every direction, which I just think it plays much better than the first one. But either game is a great choice. They are particularly great, crazy fun, especially in co-op. You can play with up to 4 players in either game, and the second one does have online player for that co-op. So again, the first Guns, Gore, and Cannoli is 50% off for $4.99, and its sequel is 50% off for $6.49. If you're trying to decide between the two, I really would strongly recommend the second one. Again, I think that gameplay is much more evolved, it's much more refined. But however, if you really like fighting against zombies, you might enjoy the first game a little bit better. All right, my second highest recommendation is for Super Lucky's Tale. Super Lucky's Tale is an amazing 3D platformer. It's just a great throwback to sort of that late 90s, early 2000s style platformer, but it is also more evolved. I think they've done a lot to modernize that style of game. But what's really great about this game is it plays amazing on the Switch. It all plays at 1080p, 60 frames per second. It just looks amazing. Granted, you can play this game in 4K on the much more next-gen systems, but if you're okay with 1080p, this just looks phenomenal on the Switch. Being completely serious, I would say this game would easily make it into my top 5 favorite 3D platformers on the Switch. And Super Lucky's Tale is currently matching its previous low for 40% off for $17.99. All right, my final recommendation is Tales of Iron. I've talked about this game before in a deal video. In fact, I think I might have even given it top billing before in a video. But it's now at its lowest price ever, and I will take any chance I can to recommend this game. This was my absolute #1 favorite indie game of last year. This is a 2D Souls-like game where you play as a rat who is trying to take back his kingdom, which has been stolen by the evil Toad Horde. The production values in this game are absolutely through the roof. The graphical style is all amazing. It's all hand-drawn. The whole thing is narrated by the voice actor who plays Geralt from The Witcher. If you've never played a Souls-like game, this is a pretty good place to jump in. It's still very difficult, but I think the fact that you get to play it on a 2D perspective sort of limits how much you have to calculate as far as the combat goes. And thankfully, they updated the game not too long ago, and it does include a lower difficulty level, so you can jump in even if you don't think you're quite able to handle that kind of gameplay. But yeah, great story, great atmosphere, amazing combat. I just can't say enough good things about Tales of Iron. And like I said, Tales of Iron is at its lowest price ever for 40% off for $14.99. All right, so those were my personal highlights, but let's go ahead and get comfortable and watch this sizzle reel of more deals. Go ahead and take note of the music. I am using a track from The Flame and the Flood. Like I said, that game has an amazing soundtrack, and I wanted you to get just a little taste of it.
Clouds to breathe. All I want is to cure this land sickness in me. All I need is food and water to set me free. I found myself in a hurry, to the bone, saturated in worry, foul hooked and thrown. All I want is to cure this land sickness in me. All I need is moving water to set me free.
All right, all you tricksters, thank you again for joining me for another deal video. Let me know down in the comments below which games you're thinking of picking up. If you're not subscribed already and you enjoyed this content, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And until next time, Switch fans, I hope you have great gaming. Bye-bye.